In 23 BC, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa journeyed to the island of Lesbos. There, the general engaged in discreet meetings with Parthian ambassadors to negotiate the return of Rome's missing eagles and her prisoners of war. Losses suffered between Rome's defeat at Carrhae in 52 BC and her failed Parthian invasion of 36 BC. Although he undertook this task on behalf of his dearest friend, Caesar Augustus, who needed a symbolic victory over Parthia, Agrippa's trip to Lesbos served a secondary purpose. As Julius Caesar had once done at the Rubicon River, Marcus Agrippa tossed the dice in a gamble that his absence from the Eternal City would ultimately help to secure his family's place atop Rome's new hierarchy. And why should it not? After all, Marcus Agrippa had devoted most of his life to the pursuit of Julius Caesar's vision of a Rome wherein a man should be rewarded with what he had earned, and not simply by virtue of a famous name. Together with Caesar's adopted son, Augustus, Marcus Agrippa fought against the elitism that had rendered Rome bloated and lazy and corrupt. Along the way, Agrippa not only garnered for himself the love and loyalty of Rome's legions, but also the admiration and respect of the Roman people. Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa was born in 63 BC to a man named Lucius Vipsanius by a woman whose identity is lost to antiquity, but who likely died in childbirth, as the cognomen Agrippa meant breech birth. The Vipsanii hailed from the Italian countryside and had barely acquired sufficient wealth to qualify within the equite class of citizens. Agrippa was the youngest of 3 children, having an elder brother named after their father and a sister named Vipsania Pola. When Agrippa reached the appropriate age for military service, he found himself conscripted into the legions of Julius Caesar, who was still fighting the last remnants of the Pompeians in Africa and Hispania. Agrippa's brother, Lucius, served under one such Pompeian commander, Marcus Porcius Cato, placing the brothers Vipsanii on opposing sides of the civil war. Following the Battle of Thapsus and the suicide of Cato, Agrippa's brother was captured with the remainder of Cato's soldiers who had refused to surrender. Agrippa then went to Gaius Octavius, one of Julius Caesar's nephews with whom he had become good friends, and beseeched him to approach his uncle and ask for mercy on behalf of his brother Lucius. Gaius Octavius agreed. Not only did Julius Caesar, impressed with Agrippa's loyalty to his family, release Lucius Vipsanius, but he took an active interest in promoting the career of the young Marcus Agrippa. When the dictator sent Gaius Octavius to Apollonia to be trained and educated, he also invested in the education and training of the young Marcus Agrippa. In Apollonia, Agrippa was educated alongside Gaius Octavius by the Stoic philosopher Athenodorus of Canamites, the philosophical successor to Posidonius of Rhodes, a tutor under whom Cicero had studied. Then, without warning, the fortunes of both young men changed. As Agrippa and Octavius prepared for Caesar's arrival in Apollonia, at which time they expected to march first for Dacia and then for Parthia, word arrived from Rome. Julius Caesar had been assassinated during a meeting of the Senate. Agrippa's 19-year-old friend, Gaius Octavius, was now the new Caesar. Despite pressure from his friends to flee into Macedonia and save himself by seeking the protection of the legions, Gaius Octavius chose to face the problem head-on. Octavius sailed for Italy, and Marcus Agrippa joined him. Through his various military and political alliances, first with Cicero and the Senate, and later with Marcus Antonius and the other Caesarian commanders, Marcus Agrippa remained loyal to the new Caesar's cause. Following the creation of the Second Triumvirate at the end of 43 BC, Caesar Octavianus held the 42 BC consulship with the intention of passing the Lex Pedia, a piece of legislation naming an attack on a legally appointed magistrate as a capital crime. Agrippa, because of his plebeian status, held office as a tribune of the plebs during the same year. This gave Agrippa the legal authority to veto any attempts to prevent the Lex Pedia from becoming law. With the passage of the Lex Pedia, Caesar's killers became enemies of the state, and in the ensuing battles of Philippi in 42 BC, Marcus Agrippa commanded on behalf of Caesar Octavianus, now called Divi Filius. Although the first battle saw Agrippa's forces overrun by those of Marcus Junius Brutus, he and Marcus Antonius were victorious over the Republican armies at the second battle a few weeks later. 2 years after that, Marcus Agrippa served as praetor Urbanus, during which time he defeated the armies of Fulvia Flacobambula and Lucius Antonius, wife and brother of the triumvir Marcus Antonius, in their bid to end the Second Triumvirate and take control of Rome. In 38 BC, Agrippa served as governor of Gaul, where he followed in the footsteps of Julius Caesar. Not only did he defeat an uprising in Aquitania, but he became the second general to cross the Rhine River and make war against the tribes of Germania. For his victory over Aquitania, the Roman Senate honored Marcus Agrippa with a triumph, an honor Agrippa politely declined in the wake of Caesar Divi Filius's devastating defeat at the hands of Sextus Pompeius. 2 more times the Senate offered Agrippa a triumph, once for his victories in Hispania, and then again for his annexation of Crimea. Agrippa declined them all. In 37 BC, Agrippa, then only 26 years old, served as Roman consul. So that his dearest friend, Caesar Divi Filius, might defeat the pirate Sextus Pompeius, Agrippa used the resources of his consular office to begin construction of a hidden harbour in Campania. There, free from the prying eyes of Pompeian spies, Agrippa constructed a new and larger naval fleet. These ships were fitted with new weapons technology, which was also designed by Agrippa. An upgrade to the standard corvus, the harpax was a ballista that could hook an opposing ship, and then, through a winching system, reel the captured vessel in, for boarding by the legions. After defeating Sextus Pompeius in 36 BC, and then Marcus Antonius at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa became the first and only Roman commander ever to be awarded the Corona Navalis, a laurel wreath decorated with miniature ship beaks. By 33 BC, and despite already having held the highest of political offices, military commands, and naval commands, Marcus Agrippa was elected plebeian aedile. This office, used primarily by young men as a stepping stone to higher public office, was much more than head of an entertainment committee for amusing the crowds with chariot racing and wild animal hunts. The aedileship bore responsibility for the city's maintenance, a responsibility that Marcus Agrippa, as a man raised in a family that lived barely above the poverty line, took very seriously. Using his now considerable personal wealth, Marcus Agrippa's term as aedile was marked by repaired streets, many of which have fallen into ruin, crumbling buildings now stabilized or replaced, and the construction of brand new temples. Under Agrippa's aedileship, the Aqua Marcia, an aqueduct which carried drinking water into the city, was upgraded and enlarged. By adding additional plumbing, Rome's increased water supply now filled drinking fountains and pools even further across the city, reducing the distance many had to walk simply to acquire fresh water. He also cleaned and enlarged the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's sewer system, improving city hygiene. Additionally, the aedileship of Marcus Agrippa saw new public baths built and made available free of charge to Rome's poorest citizens on specified days of the week. Also from his own resources, Agrippa funded a social program which provided free salt and olive oil as an addition to the grain dole distributed to poor citizens, improving food preservation and preparation. All this Marcus Agrippa did while simultaneously offering the city a new form of entertainment. The Troy Games was a lavish new festival created by Agrippa, wherein Rome's noble youth could battle in a reenactment of the fall of Troy. Not only did this new festival offer a fresh and fun distraction for the citizens of Rome each year, but it also gave them an opportunity to follow the developing talents and potential military prowess of Rome's upcoming generations of sons, those who would someday control Rome's legions. From the command of forces to the holding of offices, the creation of weapons to the architecture of the city, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa had made his mark on Rome, improving the lives of Rome's citizenry, all without being a threat to Caesar Augustus. And yet, by 23 BC, that dear friend for whom Agrippa had selflessly achieved so many military victories all but forgot him and began focusing his attention on a blood relative. Caesar Augustus was suddenly grooming his nephew, Marcus Claudius Marcellus, for city administration. After 25 years of fighting against senatorial elitism, Caesar Augustus appeared ready to allow Rome once again to fall into the hands of someone with the right family name. But with his life hanging in the balance during his near-fatal illness, Augustus may have come to realize that his death would likely trigger the same chain of events and outcome as had followed the death of Julius Caesar: civil war. The legions would not follow Marcellus just because it was Augustus's wish. They would follow Agrippa, as they had followed Marcus Antonius when Julius Caesar had wished them to follow the 19-year-old Augustus. But Augustus lived, and at his request, Agrippa withdrew from Rome amidst rumors and whispers of jealousy and exile, leaving his lifelong friend to experience the harsh reality of political life without him. By retreating to Lesbos and quietly doing what Caesar Augustus had asked him to do, Marcus Agrippa revealed to his dearest friend just how important he and his family had become to the Roman people and to her legions. The stage was now set such that following the mysterious death of Marcellus, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa was invited to become co-ruler with Caesar Augustus through a marriage to Augustus' daughter Julia. Granted the same tribunicia potesta and proconsular imperium held by Caesar Augustus, the person of Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa became inviolable, making it as much of a capital crime to physically harm him as it was to physically harm Caesar Augustus. By the year 17 BC, just 3 years into his marriage with Julia, Agrippa had established himself in Rome's new Julian dynasty. In 20 BC, Julia had given him a son named Gaius Vipsanius Agrippa, followed by a daughter named Julia Vipsania in 19 BC, and a second son named Lucius Vipsanius Agrippa in 17 BC. For Agrippa's lifetime of loyal service to Caesar Augustus, the sons of Agrippa and Julia were formally adopted by their grandfather, who had no son or heir of his own. Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, the man who had begun his life in lower middle-class obscurity, had succeeded in elevating his family to the very top of the Rome envisioned by Julius Caesar, and was now the man to provide Augustus Caesar with Rome's future, in his son, Gaius Vipsanius Agrippa, the boy, Gaius Caesar.